Welcome to Built to Win, the podcast created to help you level up your business game by developing a success mindset made for the long run. In this episode, Neora's Dave Fleming talks with Damon Rourke, Neora's National Marketing Director, about his path to achievement. Damon shares how his business journey parallels his success as a collegiate athlete and explains how practices like consistency and perseverance shaped his career. He also talks about the importance of embracing a growth mindset, building relationships, and being part of a supportive community.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Built to Win, and thanks for joining us. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I've got a special guest with me, Damon Rourke, who I've known now for a couple of years, and really excited to let you get to know him better. But Damon, for those that don't know you, tell us about yourself. Tell us, who you are, where you live, what's your family like. Just give us the rundown on
Yeah,
Damon
man.
Rourke.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm always excited to work with you on any project, but sitting down and having a conversation is definitely a fun time. So thanks for having me. I grew up in Flower Mound, Texas. It's just a suburb of Dallas, and went to school at the University of Texas, and now live in Dallas, as you know, and so Dallas, basically born and raised. And my wife and I have been married for, I always mess this up because we've had the company since 2011. So we got engaged 6 months before we launched the company, and we got married 6 months after. And so with all that stalling, we've been married for, I believe, it's coming up on 13 years. So company will turn 13, and then then we'll be 13 years 6 months later. So I guess that's an easier way to remember it, because we never forget the company's anniversary. But we will forget our anniversary. And she's the same yours. Yeah. And we have three beautiful kids, 8, 6, and 3 at the time that we're recording this, 3 girls. And it really, I mean, this stage of life, we're just in it, like with young kids, with having a business. We are just in it.
Yeah. I know what that's like. I have 4 kids myself, and my wife and I are a little ahead of where you are, but I remember those days, and it's like it is crazy how busy kids are and how busy they keep you.
Yeah.
And then of course trying to run a business and run your own business and do all the things. It's a lot. So I totally empathize with that right now.
It's a lot. And it's just, I'm amazed at how much we can actually get done. Like when we we have a weekly meeting, and when we're in that weekly meeting and we do a little bit of reflection, or, if we go to a happy hour or something on a Friday, and I'm just amazed at how much we can actually get done compared to what I thought busy was before I was married and before I had kids. Like,
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Like how much time that you actually, like how productive you can be when you're kind of forced to be.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like, because you have to take care of your kids, right? Like it's you have to do it. And so when you have so many things that you have to do, and then you add the things that you want to do, I used to just be busy with things I wanted to do. And now it's like stuff that you actually have to do. It's crazy how productive you can be.
Yeah. No, you feel pretty good. And then, of course you get to my age and you're like, I don't know if I have that gear anymore, but but it is like, enjoy it. You're like, cause it is like, and it's such a cliche, but I found that it is absolutely true. Cause when my kids were your kids' age, they were like, oh, cherish every moment. And then you're in the middle of it and you're like, oh, sure. Yeah. Whatever. And then now that my kids are older, and like, like two of them are in their 20s. And so they're not home anymore. And you're like, yeah, you know what? They were right. It's such a cliche, but it is so true. Like it is absolutely true. Like cherish every moment you get with those little ones. But
yeah, cherish every moment. But nobody tells you when you have, I think the third kid is really put us over the edge, but nobody actually talks about like the carpool stuff, like doing the activities. I thought when we had 3 kids, I come from 2 kids. I have a younger sister. Amber doesn't have any siblings. And so we were both like, we want to have a bigger family. And so we were like, yeah, at least 3 kids. Oh, I've done it 3. 3 is great for us. But I always thought about when they were babies, you think about changing diapers, thinking about having 3 little ones that you're taking care of. And then I thought about when they come home for the holidays, right? When they're grown adults and maybe they have their own families, like we're gonna have the bigger get-togethers. I never thought about the time in between, like 5 and 16. like before they can drive, and you're taking them everywhere. And it's just, you're doing all of that, taking care of kids, and then getting them to all their events also. That the activities just blow my mind, man. I don't know how you guys did it with four, but
I wish I could tell you, honestly. Like it was all
well,
kind of a blur, and you just,
yeah,
like you said, you have
just do it.
to, and so you just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember having that conversation, like, because we had two children, we had a third, and like as a former basketball player, we went from man to man to
Yeah.
zone, and then we had the fourth, and it was like, yeah, like, but like you said, you do it because you have to, and it's great, it's just, it's awesome, but it is busy. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I appreciate where you are, but so tell us, and for those listening who don't know you, but when somebody asks you what you do, like, what do you say? Like, what do you do for a living?
Yeah. It for a long time, I always just say sales and marketing. Like we partnered with the biotech company. My wife runs the company, and I do sales and marketing for it. Like I do training. It's really pieced together. Like it's so much of it's pieced together because I love what I do. Like on a daily basis, I love it. Like I really do. It can be stressful. It can be crazy. I can get frustrated. But when I do take a step back and take a deep breath and look around, like I love what I do. But yeah, I always just say sales and marketing. One of the reasons I love being on this podcast with you is just the podcast. Like it's a time you can sit and talk to people. I love talking to people. So very quickly, usually just almost intrinsically, like I just convert the conversation back to the person I'm talking to. One thing that I have learned from what I've done for the past 13 years is just everybody has such an interesting story. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
everybody
yeah.
has their own experiences, they have their own story. And so that's why I really like podcasting and sitting down and having a conversation. And that's what so when I'm talking to somebody, it's usually I just say sales and marketing. It gets the point across, and then I go back to trying to talk about them and find out their story.
Yeah, I think that's such an important part of communication. And I think where a lot of people, especially in this business, tend to forget that, being in fact, upcoming podcast with Michaela Gainey, she talked about being a great listener is such an
Yeah.
important part of the business. And I mean, I think that's something that you do well naturally. Not everybody does that naturally. So I think that's a really cool skill that you have. And I don't know if you learned it or if it just was kind of innate in your personality, but I've noticed that about you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think I mean I enjoy listening to people. I enjoy having the conversation, and I think a lot of a lot of the coaching that I do, like when I'm working with somebody and trying to help them, especially if they're getting started, like sometimes people just need to talk a little bit and to get their thoughts in order, or maybe to get some frustration out, or just get something they have to say out, and then you can really get to the meat of how you can help somebody when you get to know them. And generally, when I started in sales um, I don't know how long, almost 20 years ago. That's crazy to say. I started in sales almost 20 years ago. And that was one of the major things that I learned when I even first started in sales, even inside sales, when I was on the phone. It would be listen twice as much as you're talking. And when you're talking to somebody, especially that's on the sales side, this specifically with sales, they'll usually tell you what their pain point is. Like they
Hmm.
usually tell you how you can help them. If you can help them, they're going to let you know.
For sure. Yeah, I think that is one thing that I wish we could somehow teach everybody, that
Yeah.
you give people an opportunity to tell you what their pain points are, and then solve for that, and you'll be ultimately way more successful than if you're trying to tell them why our product is better than another, or like what we can do for
Yeah.
them. Like they'll
Yeah.
they'll tell us what they need.
Yeah. And they're not going to be excited what you're excited about. That's one mistake that I made. And I think it's just natural, but that's a mistake that I made when I first got started with Neora. Was I was so excited about being able to make a lot of money. I mean, like coming from a sales background, I just saw this. I was like, this is going to be a moneymaker. This is huge. And you get a car bonus. And then I wasn't excited about the trips. When at that point, um, at that point, I was 27, about to be 28 years old. I was making good money in medical sales. We didn't have a kid. I wasn't even married at that point. And so, having a trip did not make a difference. Like it was just one more trip. Like when
Mm.
you're in your late 20s, Amber and I are about to combine our incomes. and we could travel wherever we wanted to, whenever we wanted to. We had to have somebody to babysit our dog. Like that was it, right? So I wasn't excited about the trips. But now that I'm 41 and have these kids running around and my wife and I are crazy busy, like I can't wait to go on these trips that we get to earn. But all that to say, when I first started, I would talk about what I was excited about. And I see a lot of people do this when they first get started. They'll talk about what they're excited about because they're excited about it and because they want to talk about it, rather than talking to somebody, getting to know somebody, and having that person really tell them how they're looking to improve their life right then, because they're not going to be excited about everything that we have going on.
Yeah, for sure. And the truth is like there's so many great things about this
Yeah,
business. There's no way that you can effectively talk about all of the
no,
different things. Like
true.
it's just there's too much. So you
Yeah,
kind of have to let people tell you what they need.
yeah,
And yeah, so it's just like backing up to because you've been here basically since the beginning of Neora.
yeah.
You were doing medical sales, you were doing things. So what was it that made you interested in looking at this? I know you mentioned that this looked like a slam dunk, like a money maker. Was it the money or was it something else?
It,
What
it was
opened
the, it
the
was the
door?
product. Yeah, it was the
Product.
product.
Okay.
The money was going to be a byproduct of the actual product. When I tried the night cream, so we got the final product, the night cream, in a little bit before we launched the company, and my wife was like, don't, and for everybody who doesn't, so my wife is the president, co-founder of our company. My father-in-law is our founder, and so I watched them build this thing from the very beginning. Like I watched them build it for months and months. And we were engaged at the time, and the housing market was crazy in Dallas, and so we knew we wanted to buy a house. And so we bought a house. I was living in it. She was living at her mom's house in like probably 20 or 30 minutes away. But I would watch her go into the office, right? She would go into the office. She would not get paid when you're launching a company and there's no money coming in. Money doesn't go out. So basically a volunteer job. And then they came out with the product and she was like, just try it. Like try the product. I was like, okay, I'll try it. As a, 27-year-old guy, like I don't use anti-aging. Like I don't use a night cream. I didn't know it was a thing. And so I tried the product. I had some sun damage on my forehead that came up to the surface, like it was like flaking off. Like this stuff's incredible. So once I saw that work, I started to put the pieces together of the commission, the comp plan, to where if I can add a customer, like I've had customers now for 13 years. So if I can add a customer, add a customer, add a customer, and make that commission, I'm building this book of business over time. That's really what attracted me. For me, that was the money maker. I was like, this is going to be huge. The product's incredible. And then you can build up businesses, because I was in medical sales. I was selling a software to doctors, like a appointment booking software. Um, I sold it once, I got paid once, and then they paid the company for the monthly service, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, lots of setup like that, but I would get calls from the doctor, 6 months later, and I would have to prioritize my new sales over actual customer service because I didn't get paid on that. Like
Hmm.
I can't go to a doctor's office and answer his questions unless he's adding another doctor or he can give me referrals, right? So, I mean, I wanted to help him, like it was good, but it was just weird, especially for me, my personality. I really like to help people. And so it was weird to have to prioritize going and getting new sales rather than doing good customer service when I built a relationship and sold that doctor in the first place. So even before Neora, I was hoping or wondering if there was a position out there was something out there to where I could build that book of business over time. So that's what really attracted me, man. I tried the product, and then once the product worked, I was I knew everything else was going to work. Like the comp plan, and I'm not a numbers guy. The compensation plan didn't matter to me. Like they could have said you make 5 cents per bottle. Like, okay, but I make 5 cents every month, right? And I can build
Hmm.
on that. And so at
Hmm.
some point, it's going to be very big. We make way more than 5 cents per bottle. But that the point was I could build that over time.
Yeah, which is such a like if you're not familiar with that concept, it's really easy to think about. I remember a friend of mine, very competitive sales guy, and he would lay awake at night and he would dream, like he would think literally like, what is the biggest ticket I can sell? Because
Yeah.
it was that one and done mindset.
Yeah.
And so he was like dreaming about like selling Boeing airplanes. He's like, that's the biggest thing I can think of.
Yeah.
And and then he was introduced to the same concept where you can build a book of business and they get paid every time your customer orders. And so, yes, you're selling one time, but you're not getting paid one time. You're getting paid over and over and over on the customer. and
Mhm.
it just changed his complete mindset. He ended up being very, very successful in this business. But similar to what you were just saying is like, this is, this is a little bit different, and it's fantastic in its difference,
Yeah.
but not everybody recognizes that right away.
Yeah, that was being able to build the relationships, being able to, just that, just being able to build relationships. And then also, and this sounds, I feel like this just sounds bad coming out, but, being able to build those relationships and make money on them, right? Like being
Mhm.
able to leverage, like, which, it sounds bad, like you're making money in relationships, but who else would you want to make money with? Like, do you want to be friends with the people that you work with? Do you want to be friends with the people that you're serving and providing, that service to and getting paid for? Yes, of course. But always in my head when I'm like, oh, I want to build relationships and make money on it, it always feels like it sounds bad. But in reality, like, what else are you going to do to where you get to build these relationships up? You get to help people grow. For your customers, you get to support those customers, provide them with the best value, even introduce them to the other things of Neora that they can take advantage of just as customers, right? They can be a part of these online groups that we have. They can be a part of our Facebook groups and get exposure to happy, positive people that are on that growth path rather than maybe what they have in their life right now.
For sure, for sure. And I think that's an important thing because relationships in this business are super, super important because
Mhm.
you build teams, and we've referred to this business as kind of building a volunteer army because there's, nobody has a sales quota. Nobody's calling you to say, hey,
Yeah.
you didn't do enough this month. Like people are doing what they're going to do,
Right.
self-motivated. Um, and one of the things that's interesting about this, and I worked in Silicon Valley for about 5 years,
Mhm.
and I love that you brought up value because so much of business in Silicon Valley is built on relationships adding value to each other. And this person knows this person, and these two companies can have synergy here, or they work together and they introduce each other. And a lot of times there's not necessarily any monetary value, but this relationship economy is so strong that
Yeah.
people are adding value and bringing value. Just like you said, like we are bringing value not only to our customers but to our team members, to the people, and and that in itself is such a valuable part of what we do. So I'm glad that you brought that up and kind of emphasized that because yeah, we are bringing value, and I think it's okay. And some people may, like you said, they might not be comfortable with that idea, but in this business, you get compensated for the value that you bring, and that's that's a good thing. That's a fair thing.
Yeah.
Um, Not always the case in every business.
No, and I think that's a modern, I think it's more of a modern concept of working. Like, you need to have work-life separation. When, 100 years ago, you worked with the people that were around you, right? Or
Hmm.
maybe 200 years ago, like, you worked in your community. You worked with your, like, people that you sold to, or the people that you went to church with, that your kids went to school with, that you went to school with. And then sometime, in this modern era, we made this separation of family, like your home life, or what is the work life separation, that work life balance myth. But that work life separation, and I think for me personally, because I've thought about it a lot. 'Cause, I mean, I've been doing this for 13 years, and like, well, man, like, I want to make friends. I want to build relationships with people, and if they want to buy my product, they can buy my product. But providing that value to them, like you're saying, um, you almost you almost had to provide that value 200 years ago if you were in your community, right? You were either a valuable piece of your community or you weren't. But now it's like we have this separation where you can just go to work and not really provide any value to anybody, and then go home and hopefully you're valuable someplace. But they're not linked up anymore.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a really good, really interesting perspective on how to look at that because it's true. Like you can go put in 8 hours a day at something, and you don't know if what you're doing is bringing value to your
Right.
your community. Um, so yeah, and I do like that what we do is bring value, even if people aren't making, a significant income, although a lot of people do. But there's this community aspect where people are, for me, I see it where, some people are motivated by the income that they can earn.
Yeah.
Some people are motivated by the recognition that they earn because they don't get it anywhere else.
Right.
And then there's the other group that's like they're in it for the community. They're just,
Yeah.
they're in it for the vibe. And I think that's just as important as the other aspects, the recognition and the income.
Yeah, that was one thing that that Jeff has said from the very beginning that always stuck with me is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody comes into this and they don't make a dollar, they're going to walk away a better person because of the community, right? You can't be around five happy, successful people and not be the sixth person. Like you can't be around five people that want to grow, right? They have the attitude of growth, and they could be growing, like they could be pursuing growth in health in their life. They could be pursuing being a better parent. They could be pursuing making more money, right? They're pursuing something. They're growth oriented. You can't be around people with the growth mindset and not walk away with a better growth mindset of where you want to take it, right? Wherever you want to go with it. And I think that that community is just, especially now, like it's, I saw a stat the other day, and by stat, I mean something I saw on Instagram, that people spend more time alone now than ever before. So we're spending more time on our phones than we are with other people. And it really, it laid it all out, but it made sense. And I think that's one thing we just don't think about with the community that we have. We think everybody has a bunch of supportive, like you get into this and 6 months in, you forget what it was like before.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one thing from the pandemic that I was really grateful for. When we had our first live event again and you were around other people, I mean, I still get chills when I think about it, but you need to be around other people. There's value in being around other people, and you get to choose the people that you're going to be around. So being around people with that growth mindset makes a huge difference, and it's going to make you a better person. And the money with Neora, and we talk about big money, and sometimes I think we just get jaded or we forget. Again, like I think we forget, like $500 a month is life changing, right? A $6,000 a year is life changing.
Mm-hmm.
$12,000 a year is absolutely life changing because when you first get in New York, like when I first got into New York, it's like, man, if I could make $500 a month, I'll give it 12 months and I'll do exactly what they tell me to do. And if I can make $500 a month, I'll do it for another year, right? Like I'll do exactly what they say. And by that 12th month, if I'm making $500, I'll stick with it. If I'm not, I'll evaluate what I've done. If I did what I said I was going to do, if the company is what I think it is, then I'll make the decision to keep going or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, like I coach with people and I work with people now, and they're like, well, I don't think I'll ever hit that top spot where I'm making 10 grand a month. You'd be like, but listen to and you're going to quit over that. Like, listen to yourself, give yourself some time. Like you're talking about something that regardless of what company you're with or what business you're in or what job you have, like making six figures in something is huge. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
even with inflation, everything we've had over the past 5, 10 years, like it's still a huge position. And so again, I think it's funny. Sometimes we get started in this community, you get plugged into this community, and then we just forget what other people are going through. And it's so important to remember how much they need a growth mindset around them, how much they need positive, supportive people around them. And then what an impact this business can make to help somebody make a couple $100 a month or $1,000 a month. It's easy to do here. But I think sometimes because we do get into the community, the downside of the community would be we forget what it was like before we actually had this community around us.
For sure. Yeah, because it's human nature to like kind of adjust to the new environment
Mhm.
real quick. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, it's easy to forget what it was like before that. Um, Speaking about the business, and I'm curious if you know, because for people who aren't familiar with our business, different teams, you've built a team at Neora. Um, do you know offhand how much your team has sold in terms of product over the last 5 years?
I don't know. Do you know?
I do. I have it in front of me. Yeah. So I was just curious. Yeah. So in the last 5 years, your team has sold over $30 million worth of product.
Jeez, that's incredible.
Is
That's
that
crazy.
surprising?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Because
mean, it's not I get to work with some awesome people. So that part's not surprising. It's surprising. Yeah. I mean, it's just a huge number, right? Selling
Yeah.
30 million of anything is huge.
It is. It
But
is. And sometimes people look at this and they're like, "Oh, this isn't that serious of a business." And
yeah,
well, that's a significant business. I don't care what product you are or what business you are. Like that's significant revenue over a 5 year period of time.
yeah, that's
It's
huge. That's
yeah.
incredible.
So um, and a lot of times we've talked to people who, and they don't, because it's not really about the numbers. Because like you were saying, it's really about the relationships, and it's about
Yeah,
helping people become better and being part of this community. And so we don't talk about those numbers a lot because again, that's not necessarily what it's all about. But
yeah,
then when you take a step back and you're like, oh my gosh, like yeah, that's big business.
yeah.
That's big revenue.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I really should know that stuff more, man. I think that's probably my one of my next steps is to know. Like, I get the question all the time, like, well, how many people do you have on your team? Like, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. Like, I work with the people that I work with. I worked with people that want to work with me, that want to grow, and the people that I can help. But the people I can't, like, it's I don't know. Like, it's just I don't know the size of my team. I don't know how much we're doing in sales over the last 5 years. Those are just those are huge numbers.
Well, it's hard too because your team could look different any given day
Yeah,
because
true.
somebody's working this week or this month and they're not working, they're out of town, they're on vacation, whatever. And that's one of the things about this business because like Jeff says, it is a volunteer army.
Yeah.
So it's not like a staff and it's not like an employee structure. It's like you've got your people and sometimes they're on the team, sometimes they're not, but that's
Yeah.
that's part of how we do what we do. Um, I want to go back even before Neora started, even before medical sales. You were for people that don't know, you were a competitive athlete,
Yeah.
collegiate scholarship athlete, D1 athlete. Um, I'm curious, like from that background, were there any skills, anything that you learned from that environment that you were able to bring over to this entrepreneurial environment,
Yes.
building a business?
Yeah. And so this is fine. My mom gave me a box of memories. I didn't even know we still had this stuff, but I was going through it with my girls. Um, it's funny to go back through those things and you get back in that mindset. But one thing I was told a lot when I was growing up is swimming. Like, swimming's a great sport. Like, as I was a college swimmer, and swimming's like, people would say swimming's a great sport. And they would say that, I'm 16, 17 years old, 20 years old. And I'm like, okay, you guys must not understand what I do. Like, I show up, the coach tells me what to do. I jump into a cold pool and I do the thing. Like, I swim up and down a black line. I'm not developing social skills. We can't talk like you're talking in 30-second increments when you're on the wall, right? Otherwise, you're just in your head the entire time. I mean, it's just you're singing songs to yourself. You're going over. I mean, it's just you're in your head for 4 hours a day. Um, but now that I have some perspective on it, some experience, I look back and I'm like, that's what else would you want? Like, if you're going to be
Mm.
successful, for me, when I got started with Neora, it was very much like swimming. It was Jeff came up with this system, right? And Neora says, "Hey, go and do this," and then I went and did that. And then what do you do? That we have something here, like it's our system to where it's like, well, what do I do now? Well, go and do that, and then go and do this, and go and do that, and go and do this. And so for me, it really carried over to a large. I mean, with the right system, if somebody gave me the right mindset to just kind of have faith and faith in myself that I can get something done and just go and do it,
Hmm.
um, and and then it works. And so, you take that mindset. As long as I was thinking about this earlier today, actually, as long as you have the right coach, as long as you're in with the right system, like if you're willing just to put your head down and work, you're going to be in a great spot. It's when you stop that like if you don't work, if you stop, and I couldn't stop in the middle of a set and be like, "Hey coach, like I don't think this is the right way to swim this." You just don't do it. Um, and then my sister was a really good swimmer also. She swam at University of North Texas on scholarship. And people would come to my parents all the time. We were a year and a half apart, so we were close in age. We would go to all the practices together. And people would come up to my parents and be like, "Hey, like are they doing lessons?" My parents are like, No, we're like, we pay the club that they swim on. We're not going to pay somebody else for them to do lessons, right? Like, just such a foreign concept. They're like, well, what's their diet like? Like, they're burning, 90,000 calories a day. Like, it's whatever we can buy in bulk is what they're eating. Um, and so the great thing that my parents gave my sister and I was just that work ethic of, like, you just show up. We would do, from the age of 10, we started doing two-a-days. And so Monday through Thursday, we would have two practices a day. We'd practice Friday morning, we'd practice Saturday morning. And so, that's what, 8, 9, 10 practices a week. So from the age of 10 to 18, that's until we went to college, that's what we did. It was 10 practices a week. We didn't miss practice. Like, if you had a little cold, you went to practice. Like, you would have to be very sick to miss practice. But you expand that over time, and we saw a lot of kids that would miss practice, right? They would have, we just didn't do anything else. Like, they would have, they would have different, like, they'd have piano lessons, or they would have something they were involved in at school. We only swam. And so when we were doing 10 practices a week, they might hit 7 practices a week, right? That's still a lot. Like, that's still a ton of time in the water. But over a month, right, we have 12 more practices.
Mhm.
Over a year, it's, what is that, 144 more practices, right? You take that over 5 years, we have like 600 or 700 more practices than they did. And that's, each one of those practices is 2 hours. So talk about 1,400 more hours in the water over 5 years. It's just crazy numbers, but that really taught me, like, just show up. Like, you just show
Mhm.
up, do what the person that you trust has experience and knowledge of doing, right? They've had success before. Just do what they're telling you to do, and it'll work out for you.
That is an incredible lesson. I think that's super. And of course, we're gonna tie it back to the slight edge because we
Mhm.
do that a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
But when because Jeff talks about consistency and persistency over time, but the way that you just broke that down and the way that you just bring some math and some reality to what consistency and persistency looks like over that period of time, that's incredible. Like that
Yeah.
is absolutely mind-boggling about how that stacks up. And then, you talk about a slight edge. That's much bigger than a slight edge. That's a pretty big competitive advantage when you've got,
Right.
over that many much like literally 1,000 hours in the pool over the
Yeah.
competition. It adds up.
Makes a
Big,
huge difference.
yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's I hope people were paying attention to that because that's really impactful. Coming back to the business, come back to the Neora business and applying that consistency and seeing that in because ultimately it is the exact same principle
Yeah.
that grew the team and got you to the revenue that your team produced over the last 5 years. During that time, I'm curious, like what was your favorite thing that was happening in the business during that time? Do you have some fond memories or some flashbulb memories that stand out to you?
I mean, I think in the last 5 years, I really feel like I've developed a professional level of experience within what I do every day. I feel like I've developed this professional level of experience, and I really appreciate the growth process. Now, after 13 years, especially look at the last 5 years, I've been through so many different situations that are similar, with so many different people that are different but similar, that I know what's going to happen. And so I can have confidence when I'm working with somebody. I can say, they say, I want to go do this. Say, well, if you do that, this is going to happen. Right. And now I, again, this is just experience and hours and hours and hours of working with people. I can tell them what's going to happen. I can tell them how to avoid it. And I can tell them, like, what the right way to go do it is. So I really think it's just this growth process that, watching somebody join Neora, watching somebody get it, that wants to work, right? They come in, they have a good attitude, they want to work, they're willing to do the work, they just don't know how. And then for them to plug in, and to watch them have success and grow, and for them to prove to themselves, who they might not even believe themselves, that they could have, some level of success and accomplish something. I think that for me will always be one of the coolest things about what we do, is just watching people, adults, right? Not even, this isn't just watching kids learn something. This is adults who have been telling themselves the same story maybe for decades, right? That they can't do this, or you can tie it back to childhood or whatever you want to, but they're telling themselves they can't do something. They think they can't do something. And then then they get exposed to Neora. Then they have a little bit of belief, and then they actually follow the system and they have success, and they prove to them. You watch them go through this process, man. I just think it's one of the coolest things to see people grow and go through that.
Oh, for sure. That's one of my favorite things about this business. When you talk about, life changing, there's just as much positivity and growth around some just the personal development in this
Yes.
business as there is, the income itself. And those things usually go together. But yeah, it's incredible to see people see more potential for themselves
Yeah.
and then reach that potential and then say, there's even more potential, and they just they just keep leveling up, and it's just
Yeah.
they just keep going and going and going, and it's cool to see that. I love seeing that in this business.
It's incredible. It really, I mean, it really is. Cause I think if you work with kids, having my kids, watching my kids grow up, I'll coach some of their sports teams, and you see over a season, you see this kid grow, and year to year, you see these other kids that I don't see them every day. You see them grow, you see them learn different things, and that's cool. To see an adult do it that's been telling themselves the same thing for years, right? That believe maybe a lie about themselves, or just a negative, somebody said something negative and they took it as truth, and they've been carrying it around for so long. To see them kind of break through that and shed that off and grow. Yeah, man, there's, for me, there's like, it's addictive almost. Like you want to go find more people and help more people,
Mhm.
because you get to watch that process.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And this has been an incredible conversation. I love that. Like we've covered a lot of ground. Last question for you, and we'll let you get on your way. But for somebody who's considering this, whether it's Neora or any other business, like we talk about a lot about like business ventures, entrepreneurship, and leadership
Yeah.
on this podcast. But anybody who's considering jumping in and doing something like this, what advice would you give them?
It'd be a couple of things. I would say just get started, right? Like if you have a business in mind, and don't spend too much money getting started, right? Like don't go and take out a massive loan unless you know exactly what you're doing. If you have an idea that you want to be an entrepreneur, get started with Neora, or get started with Neora. Like if you have some idea that you want to be an entrepreneur and you just don't know what, but you know that you want that control over your own life, you want that agency over your life, you want things to be where the buck stops with you, right? That's one thing I love about Neora. When I have a problem, like a professional problem, when I have a professional issue, if I want to make more money, if I want more time, if I want more freedom, I just have to look in the mirror, right? As I just look in the mirror, and it's all up to me. And you can't get that other places. Like if you just think you want to start a business, get started with Neora first, build this business, learn about systems, learn about duplication, learn about personal development, learn about maybe where your weaknesses are. And it's a huge return on investment, and it's not a large investment, right? It's basically nothing when you're talking about starting a business.
Hmm.
Um, if you know what you want to do, like you know exactly what you want to do, you know the business that you want to go start, just start, right? Just get started. There's only so many TikToks you can watch. There's only so many courses you can take. Get started with the best plan that you know of right now, right? If I could go back 13 years and know everything I know right now, I would have started my business a lot differently. But you have to get started. Like you just have to get started doing something, and then you'll learn along the way. Because right now, you think about from where you are to where you want to be is 100 steps, right? You might think you're on step 20. Like you're on step one, right? And when you get to, all you need to know is how to get to step two. You don't need to know how to get to step 100 or step 20 or step 5, right? Because when you get to step two, what you thought was step 3 is actually step 7, right? It just moves out. And so I would say just get started. Stop thinking about it. Just get started. Find the time in your day to where you can get started doing something in what you want to do, and pursue some type of growth. If you're spending a lot of time on social media, stop. If you're spending a lot of time watching TV, stop. Like find the time to where you can build something on the side in the cracks of your life without going all in. Because I mean, I know you've seen it too, Dave, to where somebody has an idea, they have an entrepreneurial idea, and they sink their entire life savings into it, right? And it
Mhm.
doesn't work out. And maybe because it was their fault or it's just something they didn't know. But now they're in the hole $500,000, right? You get started with Neora, you're going to learn so much about business. And we've had people that we've worked with have gone on and started other entrepreneurial ventures, and they attribute a lot of their success to what they learned at Neora before they went out there and took on a huge amount of debt or spent a lot of money to get something started. So I just get started. Just pull the trigger, do it. You're gonna love the growth process.
Yeah, I love that. Just get started. We talk about it all the time about, the skills that you learn and the experience that you get here. One of the mantras that I learned in when I worked in Silicon Valley was to learn cheap
Mm,
and then bet big. And and I think that's kind of that's what you're talking about is
yeah,
learn as much as you can about business here, where it's it's very it's like there's nobody going to come. I was talking to somebody else on this podcast who had loans and franchises, and if that failed, their house was on the line.
yeah,
The bank, they literally were going to lose their house, their cars. Like they were, like you said, they were going to be in the hole hundreds of thousands of dollars. They had to make it work.
yeah.
And that's, for better or worse, like sometimes it's worse, but here in this business, what we do is like, there's, like what if you don't do it? If you don't do it, easy to do, easy to not to do. And,
Easy to,
if
yeah.
you don't do it, well, then there's really, the consequences are really insignificant.
That's one of the most surprising things about this business too. And working with people, the consequences that we put on it are self-imposed.
Hmm.
Right? I got to do this by the end of the month. I got to do this by the end of the month. They're self-imposed, which is great because it means that you're actually chasing your goal. But you don't have a manager, like you said at the very beginning. You don't have a manager calling you and saying you better hit your numbers or you're fired. Right? You have somebody calling you, be like, hey, how can I help? Like,
Hmm.
you're running for this goal. I'm running for it with you. How can I help you do it? Like, do you still want to do it? Perfect. Let's run together.
Yeah. This has been fantastic. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. This has been just an absolutely incredible discussion.
Oh
Oh,
man, yeah. I love talking to you, Dave. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me, man.
yeah, you bet. And for all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us one more time. And we'll see you back on the next episode of Built to Win.
That was Dave Fleming talking with Damon Rourke about his path to success. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you learned something from it, please share it with a friend or colleague who you think would also benefit. And if you're new to Built to Win, we invite you to go back and listen to our story from the beginning. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcasts. And while you're there, please rate us and leave a review to let us know what you think of the show.